Hey there, welcome to this deep dive into Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday.
Well, this is a good one.
It is, right? We're going to unpack how this sneaky little voice in our heads, our ego, can actually sabotage our success.
Yeah, you shared this book because you want to understand how to keep that ego in check.
Exactly.
And I think we can definitely break this down.
Yeah, and I think what makes this book so compelling is that Holiday doesn't just throw out like a dictionary definition of ego.
Right.
He weaves in stories from history and his own life to show us how ego operates in a way that we can really grasp.
Totally. And he kicks things off with some pretty personal stories, too.
Oh, yeah.
Early career burnout, struggles in his relationships,
Oh, I remember that part.
even a panic attack over Wi-Fi.
Yes. It's a good reminder that even successful people wrestle with ego.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes in pretty relatable ways.
For sure.
That Wi-Fi panic attack is a perfect example of how ego distorts our priorities.
He really is.
It's that feeling that we have to be on all the time, proving ourselves, seeking external validation,
Yeah.
even when it's at the expense of our own well-being.
Ugh, it's the worst.
Okay, so let's get a little more specific.
Okay.
How does Holiday actually define ego?
He calls it an unhealthy belief in our own importance.
Okay.
It's that voice that tells us we're better than, more deserving
Right.
than everyone else.
It's that inner brat,
Yes.
as he puts it, that constantly needs to be the center of attention.
And Holiday argues that this ego, this need for constant validation, can trip us up at every stage of our journey.
I think that's so true.
It's not just about the climb to success.
Right.
It affects how we handle the spotlight
Yeah.
and even how we deal with setbacks.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely. And to really bring this to life,
Yeah.
he dives into some fascinating stories of people throughout history
Oh, yeah?
whose egos ultimately led to their downfall.
Like Howard Hughes, for example.
Oh, good one.
This guy was a brilliant aviator, a filmmaker, a billionaire, but his obsession with control and his need to maintain a certain image ended up isolating him.
Totally.
Hughes is a classic example of someone who had it all, but let his ego drive him into seclusion,
Yeah.
ultimately squandering his potential.
It's a stark reminder that confidence, when it tips over into arrogance, can be incredibly destructive.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder how many of us have those tendencies in ourselves,
Right.
and what can we actually do about it?
Well, that's where Holiday gets really practical.
Okay.
He breaks down strategies for taming the ego in the three main phases of our journey: aspiration, success, and failure.
Okay, so let's start with aspiration.
Okay.
That early stage when we're hungry for success and eager to make our mark. What does Holiday say about managing ego at this point?
He highlights the importance of adopting a student mindset.
Okay.
Instead of being so focused on proving ourselves and seeking recognition,
Right.
we need to be open to learning and growing, even if it means taking a back seat sometimes.
So it's about focusing on the process of getting better rather than just the outcome?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Holiday shares a great story about Lars Ulrich,
Oh,
the
yeah.
drummer for Metallica.
Right.
When James Hetfield joined the band, Ulrich was told he'd have to step aside from songwriting.
Wow.
Instead of letting his ego get in the way, he embraced the opportunity to learn from Hetfield.
Okay.
And Metallica, as we know, went on to become hugely successful.
I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So if we're always trying to be the smartest person in the room, we might miss out on valuable lessons and opportunities for growth.
Precisely. And that leads to another key strategy Holiday introduces: the canvas strategy.
Canvas strategy.
Think of yourself as the canvas on which others shine.
That sounds kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah.
How does making others look good help us?
By supporting others' success, you subtly highlight your own abilities
Yeah.
and build trust.
Oh.
It's not about self-promotion.
Right.
It's about creating value. And often, that leads to bigger opportunities down the line.
It's like that saying, lift others up and you rise with them.
Exactly. And Holiday points to Bill Belichick, the legendary coach of the New England Patriots,
Of course.
as a prime example of the canvas strategy in action.
Now, Belichick is known for being a bit of a, well, let's just say he has a strong personality.
Yeah.
How does he fit into this?
Early in his career, Belichick didn't shy away from the less glamorous tasks like breaking down film.
Okay.
While other coaches saw this as grunt work, Belichick saw it as a chance to master a crucial skill, quietly building his expertise and becoming an invaluable asset.
So it's about finding ways to be useful, even if it's behind the scenes.
Yes, and it's about showcasing your skills without needing the spotlight.
Okay.
Think about it. Are there tasks or projects you've been avoiding because they seem beneath you?
It's a good point.
Yeah,
Maybe those less desirable tasks are actually opportunities to hone our skills and demonstrate our value in a way that builds trust rather than resentment.
exactly. And sometimes that's what sets you apart and opens doors to bigger opportunities.
That's a great point.
But what happens when those doors do open and we start tasting success? That's when ego can become even more treacherous.
All right, so let's dive into that next phase, the success phase.
Okay.
What new challenges does ego present when things are going well?
Success can breed a dangerous illusion of control.
Okay.
We start believing we're the sole architects of our achievements, overlooking the role of luck, timing, and the contributions of others.
It's easy to get caught up in the hype,
Yeah.
especially when everyone's telling you how brilliant you are.
Right.
How do we avoid falling into that trap?
Holliday uses the example of General George McClellan during the Civil War.
Okay.
He was a talented military leader on paper, but his ego led to indecision and disastrous consequences.
What happened?
McClellan became obsessed with having the perfect plan, overestimating the enemy, and constantly seeking approval instead of taking decisive action.
Whoa.
He was so focused on his image and reputation that he failed to act when it mattered most, costing lives and ultimately the mission itself.
So even with all the talent and accolades, his ego ultimately held him back.
Exactly.
Wow.
And this raises a crucial question for you.
Okay.
What are your fears about success?
Oh, that's a good one.
How will you handle the pressure to maintain that perfect image and avoid the pitfalls of ego when you reach the top?
Those are really good questions to consider. We'll definitely need to unpack that more.
Yeah.
But before we go there, I'm curious about one thing.
Okay.
You mentioned that ego can sabotage us even in the face of failure.
Oh, yeah.
How does that work?
It's interesting, isn't it? You'd think failure would humble us,
Right.
but ego has a way of twisting things.
Yeah.
It amplifies that sense of shame, making it harder to learn from our mistakes.
Oh, that's so true.
Instead of seeing setbacks as opportunities for growth, we
Right.
get defensive, making excuses, blaming others.
So we're essentially letting our ego block us from getting back up and trying again.
Precisely.
Wow.
We get so caught up in protecting our image that we miss out on the valuable lessons failure can offer.
Yeah.
But Holliday provides some powerful examples of individuals who managed to navigate failure without letting ego get in the way.
Play.
One that stands out is Katharine Graham, the publisher of the Washington Post during the Watergate scandal.
Talk about a pressure cooker.
Right.
She was facing legal battles, financial uncertainty, and intense public scrutiny. That had to be a defining moment for her.
Absolutely. And while many would have crumbled under that pressure, Graham persevered.
Oh, okay.
Instead of giving in to fear or lashing out, she focused on what she could control, upholding the integrity of her newspaper.
That's amazing.
She led with strength and purpose, not ego.
That's an incredible example of resilience.
Yeah.
It really shows that it's not about avoiding failure altogether, but about how we choose to respond when those setbacks inevitably happen.
Exactly. And it connects to another fascinating story Holliday shares, the transformation of Malcolm X in prison.
Right. Malcolm X went from being a street hustler to a powerful voice for social change. And a lot of that transformation happened during his time behind bars.
Here's a man who was stripped of his freedom,
Yeah.
facing years of confinement.
Right.
Yet he made a conscious decision to turn his prison sentence into a lifetime.
Wow.
He immersed himself in books, devouring knowledge, and expanding his worldview.
He basically turned what many would consider the ultimate defeat into a period of intense growth and learning.
He did.
It's a powerful reminder that we always have a choice in how we frame our challenges.
And it highlights something crucial about managing ego, even in failure.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we can't control everything that happens to us, but we can control how we respond.
Okay.
We can wallow in self-pity, or we can use those experiences to learn, adapt, and come back stronger.
So instead of asking, why me, we should be asking, what can I learn from this?
Exactly.
I like that.
And perhaps that's one of the biggest lessons from ego is the enemy.
Okay.
We have to be willing to let go of the need to be right, the need to control the narrative.
That reminds me of something else Holliday talks about. Letting go of hate. I'm curious, how does that tie into the whole ego conversation?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
When we hold on to anger and resentment,
Yeah.
we're essentially giving our ego free rein.
Oh,
We're letting it dictate our thoughts, our emotions, even our actions.
it's like we're letting those negative feelings control us rather than the other way around.
Right, and Holiday brings up the story of Orson Welles and Citizen Kane,
Okay,
which was loosely based on the life of William Randolph Hearst.
right.
Now, Hearst, a powerful media tycoon, was furious about the film and launched a massive campaign to suppress it.
That just backfired, didn't it? The more he tried to control the narrative,
Totally.
the more attention he drew to the film.
Exactly. Instead of simply ignoring it or responding with grace, he let his ego take over.
Yeah.
And ultimately, he just reinforced the very image he was trying to avoid, that of a controlling, ego-driven figure.
It seems like a pretty common pattern, actually. The
Yeah.
harder we try to control things, the more they spiral out of control.
It's a paradox, isn't it? But Holiday argues that the antidote to this kind of destructive ego is, surprisingly, love.
Okay.
Not romantic love,
Right.
but a sense of compassion and understanding,
Okay.
even for those who have wronged us.
I can see how that would be challenging, especially when we've been hurt or betrayed.
Yeah.
It feels counterintuitive to respond with kindness.
It's definitely not easy.
Right.
But Holiday points out that holding on to grudges only weighs us down.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps us trapped in the past, replaying those negative experiences over and over.
And while we're stewing in anger,
Right.
the person who hurt us is likely moving on with their life.
Exactly. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Ooh,
So how do we cultivate this sense of compassion? Where do we even begin?
that's a great question.
It starts with recognizing that everyone, even those who have hurt us, is fighting their own battles.
Okay.
We may never understand or condone their actions,
Mm-hmm.
but trying to see things from their perspective can help us release some of that anger.
So it's about letting go of the need to be right, to punish, to have the last word.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's about focusing on our own growth and well-being, not on trying to control or change others.
That's a great reminder.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in those external battles that we forget to take care of ourselves.
Right.
Now, we've talked about how to manage ego in the aspirations, success, and failure phases, but these aren't isolated events, are they?
You're right.
Yeah.
Holiday reminds us that these are stages in a continuous cycle.
Okay.
We're constantly moving through these phases, striving, achieving, stumbling, and getting back up again.
So we need to be just as vigilant about managing our ego when things are going well as when we're facing setbacks.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But he ends the book with a thought-provoking question.
Yes.
Inspired by the story of General Belisarius.
Who was Belisarius?
He was a brilliant military leader in the Byzantine Empire,
Okay.
a man who achieved incredible victories, saved his emperor from countless threats,
Mm-hmm.
and yet he was ultimately betrayed, stripped of his power,
Oh, wow.
and according to legend, blinded and forced to beg for survival.
Wow, that's a tragic story.
It is,
Yeah.
and it raises a profound question.
Okay.
Does true fulfillment come from external recognition, from trophies, titles, wealth?
Okay.
Or does it come from fulfilling our own standards of excellence, regardless of the outcome?
I think we could all benefit from reflecting on that question.
Absolutely, especially in a world that's constantly bombarding us with messages about success and achievement.
Right.
It's easy to lose sight of what truly matters.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
It really makes you think about what we're chasing and why.
Exactly. Are we driven by a genuine desire to contribute, to create something meaningful?
Right.
Or are we just seeking validation, trying to prove ourselves to the world?
And perhaps that's the ultimate test of ego.
Ooh.
Can we find satisfaction in doing the work, in living up to our own standards,
Right.
even if it goes unnoticed or unappreciated by the outside world?
It's a humbling thought.
It is.
And it definitely challenges the way we typically define success.
Right.
You know, throughout this whole conversation,
Yeah.
it feels like we've been circling back to this idea of staying humble, of being open to learning and growth.
You're right. That's a recurring theme throughout the book.
Yeah.
Holiday argues that staying a student, even after we've achieved some level of success,
Right.
is crucial for keeping ego in check.
I can see how it would be easy to get complacent,
Yeah.
to think we've got it all figured out once we've reached a certain point.
But that's precisely when ego can lead us astray.
Oh, yeah.
We stop questioning, we stop seeking feedback,
Mm-hmm.
and we start believing our own hype.
So how do we stay humble? How do we make sure we're continuing to learn and grow even when we're feeling successful?
It's about being open to new ideas,
Mm.
even if they challenge our existing beliefs.
Right.
It's about surrounding ourselves with people who will tell us the truth,
Yes.
even when it's hard to hear.
And maybe it's about remembering those early days, that hunger we had when we were just starting out.
Exactly. It's about staying connected to that sense of curiosity, that eagerness to learn and improve, regardless of where we are on our journey.
I think this deep dive has really helped me reframe my whole perspective on success. It's not just about reaching a certain destination, it's about the journey itself
Yeah.
and how we navigate those inevitable ups and downs along the way.
And it's about recognizing that ego is a constant companion, whispering doubts, tempting us with shortcuts, inflating our sense of self-importance.
Right.
But by understanding how ego operates, we can learn to manage it, to
Right.
keep it in check,
Right.
and to use it to our advantage rather than letting it sabotage us.
This has been an incredibly insightful conversation.
It has been.
I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for managing my own ego and for recognizing those patterns in myself and others.
Yeah.
What are some of the key things that stand out to you from our deep dive into ego is the enemy?
Well, the thing that really resonates with me is the idea that true success isn't about external validation.
Okay.
It's not about the trophies or the titles.
Right.
It's about living in alignment with our values, about doing the work that matters to us, and about striving for excellence in everything we do, regardless of who's watching.
And even when we face setbacks, even when we make mistakes, it's about approaching those experiences with a student mindset, asking ourselves, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this?
And perhaps most importantly, it's about remembering that ego is the enemy at every stage of our journey.
Right.
It's there when we're striving, it's there when we're succeeding,
Yeah.
and it's definitely there when we're failing.
Oh, yeah.
But by developing that self-awareness and by consciously choosing humility, purpose, and continuous learning, we can navigate those challenges with greater clarity, resilience, and ultimately fulfillment.
So the next time you find yourself getting caught up in that need for recognition, that desire to prove yourself to the world, remember the story of General Belisarius, the brilliant leader who was ultimately betrayed and forgotten despite his extraordinary achievements.
Ask yourself, what kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? Do I want to be remembered for my ego or for the impact I made, the value I created, and the lives I touched?
Those are powerful questions to consider as we move forward on our own journeys.
They are.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Ego is the Enemy.
Of course.
We hope you've gained some valuable insights that will help you tame your own ego and achieve a deeper sense of purpose and fulfillment in your life.
Hey, if you made it to the end of the video, thanks so much for listening. If you want to get the book for yourself, use the link in the description. If you're looking to level up your income, schedule a one-on-one with me to see if what I do might be right for you. Remember, like if you like the content and share so we can all become more book buff and life smart.